Welcome to The Maintenance Mindset, an audio-video podcast brought to you by the Multifamily Media Network. I'm your host, Paul Rhodes, and over the more than 3 decades in the apartment industry, I've had roles that include being on-site, providing services as a vendor, creating and delivering multiple education programs, and active association work. This podcast is centered on the often overlooked role that our on-site maintenance workers play. You know, the men and women that respond in the middle of the night to the toilet call, or the after hours, it's really hot in my apartment request, or my favorite, my ring fell down the drain, get over here now. In other words, the often unsung heroes who are responsible for asset preservation and resident satisfaction. Working in multifamily maintenance provides interesting, sometimes amusing, and often fascinating stories and viewpoints. My encouragement to you is this: whatever you do it with a maintenance mindset. Hey there. This episode of The Maintenance Mindset, I have a challenge for you. Now, this challenge is not so much a physical challenge as it is a mental one, because I would like to propose a new idea. Or maybe it's a variation on an old idea. I haven't quite decided completely yet, but it begins a while back. I was having a conversation with a co-presenter of mine. You see, two years ago at Apartmentalize in Atlanta, I was honored to be able to join Kathleen LeCount on stage. And you see, what our conversation was going to be is the resident journey and the role that maintenance can play in that resident journey. And we followed a resident all the way from before looking through for an apartment through application and signing the lease and moving in and living there and renewing. And at each point in that journey, we talked about the role that maintenance plays. Well, that got me started thinking about this concept that living in an apartment is not a one-time event. And I mean, over the life cycle of maintenance equipment, we think about that air conditioning equipment, for instance, it gets installed and then you have to perform preventive maintenance. You got to clean coils. You got to replace the filter. You need to double check all of the things that go in. But there's a lot of interconnected, complicated stuff that goes into the life cycle of that equipment. Well, across the span of this customer journey, this resident journey that we're doing, it is a complicated set of events that all interact to the overall experience of living at a property. Well, that concept was reinvigorated in me recently by listening to the interview that Don Beverin and Mike Brewer had about the 20 for 20 survey. And one thing that really came out of that survey is they discussed the fact that management companies, apartment owners, and leaders are losing touch of the exact experience for residents or prospective residents. And it really got me thinking about our maintenance processes. Are we really following or tracking what our make-ready process is? Well, that's the idea I would like to propose to you this morning. The challenge is, I challenge you to stick with me. Einstein said the most important thing we can have in life is a holy curiosity. He even is famously quoted as saying that he is not overly smart or a genius. He's just unendingly curious. That's the spirit of the challenge I issue to you today. Be curious, because we're about to talk about an idea that I think, if implemented, could completely change our resident experience. The traditional make-ready process that we do, where you get the notice to vacate, then the resident moves out, then we have this time period that the apartment is vacant, and then we have move-in day. If we think about that over the course of an entire year, we focus on it as a direct need. And it is a huge need. I mean, if we think about how much it costs to get an apartment ready, I mean, here a couple episodes ago, we talked about the numbers that if we can increase our renewal rate by 2%, it can affect savings for 10% of our budget. I still believe that. Actually, here at conferences, the conference I'm attending today, for instance, I saw numbers yesterday that's even higher for the amount of money it costs to get an apartment ready. So that, to me, that reinforces our need to have something in place like what I am calling the apartment life cycle. Now, the apartment life cycle begins with the make-ready process, but I would like to believe that this concept expands beyond just revolutionizing how we get apartments ready. You see, I believe that maintenance is three things. I mean, there's other stuff that's involved, but we have three main KPIs, or three main priorities, if you will, that we have to accomplish. We need to get vacant apartments ready. We've got to turn apartments. If we don't turn apartments, we can't get residents. And if we can't get new residents, eventually we'll have an empty property. The second thing that we do is work orders. We respond whenever something breaks. We need to fix it. The third thing we do is preventive maintenance. Can we be honest for a minute? The amount of communities that are not consistently performing preventive maintenance is huge. At conferences, over the phone, emails, messages, clients, people I talk with, they're all looking to implement preventive maintenance. And yet, if one thing changes, the first thing to drop is preventive maintenance. But those three things, work orders, make ready, and preventive maintenance, we have to focus on those. But the challenge, I think, is we're not thinking of them as that journey, as that whole. You see, we tend to think of them as separate incidental items, meaning you have this bucket is make ready. So we're going to think about and improve the make ready process. But we don't think about work orders and preventive maintenance. Work orders are stacking up and we're spending too much money on parts and we're not, it's taking too long to make repairs. Let's focus on work orders. And then the numbers on make ready, the lost rent because increased vacant days occur in make ready. And you know what? We could prevent some of these work orders if we actually implemented some preventive maintenance. We check smoke detectors, we change out T&P valves on water heaters, we flush water heaters, we clean coils inside and out. But we only focus on them one at a time. I'm interested in thinking of it holistically. And I believe it starts in our apartment life cycle as the make-ready process. That typical make-ready process, though, really, if we think about it at an individual apartment level, we're only worrying about make-readies for 2 months. Really, most leases have a notice to vacate required 60 days before the lease ends. So the office receives a notice to vacate, and that's really when maybe we begin thinking about the move out. The reason why I caveat that with maybe is what, for this particular, our current structure, What in my mind should happen is you get the notice to vacate and instantly maintenance in the office goes and performs a pre-move out inspection. Is that happening? Okay, if it is happening, is anything being done with that information? You see, the apartment life cycle is ongoing and it is all the time because it's no longer based on lease end date. It's based on tenure that starts when the resident moves in and goes until the next resident moves in. What I mean is the apartment life cycle has essentially 4 events, which is funny because I look at the current make-ready process as having 4 events. The current make-ready process, the 4 events are notice to vacate, move-out day, vacant maintenance work in the apartment, the work that we do while the apartment is vacant. And then the third piece of that, or the fourth piece of that, is the actual move-in for the new resident. In the current process, we do nothing focused on make-ready until the next notice to vacate. That's it. So in other words, we have essentially from move-in day, we have 10 months of not concerning ourselves with that apartment. The apartment life cycle plan, if you will, instead, it begins at move-in day. Because the move-in day process starts with the fact that our resident knows. Our office team starts the expectation with our brand new resident, and that brand new resident knows that move-in day is going to be a full experience, not a fast one. And what I mean by that is the move-in day begins, and our resident knows this because during the leasing process, the sales process, the tour, the application, we've set this as a standard at the community. But move-in day, the lease is signed, and at the end of the lease signing, our office team calls the maintenance team member. It's already scheduled, so the maintenance team member is ready to go. And what happens is the office team leasing calls the maintenance team and says, hey, our brand new resident for apartment number 13B is moving in. Could you meet us over there? And they do. The office staff goes to the apartment, maintenance meets them there at the apartment, and then they commence to do that valuable, vital move-in inspection together. Oh, but wait. Not only that, we also leave behind a lending toolbox. Now, if you happen to be a maintenance professional watching this, how many of your tools, or if you're not a maintenance professional listening and watching this, ask your maintenance professional how much they enjoy having residents borrow their tools. The answer is no. Sorry, I didn't give you a spoiler alert on that one. What this means is we recognize that a lot of our residents don't have hand tools. When I was growing up, that was amazing. I mean, I told my mom and dad I was moving out, and my dad went immediately to the hardware store and bought me a toilet plunger because I was moving out of the house and moving into my own apartment. And he said, here, son, you're going to need this. I'm like, thanks, Dad. Do I need more fiber too? We had a good joke. But the reality is now the generation that is our largest customer base, generally speaking, and I know I'm stereotyping here, but yes, generally speaking, not only do they not have tools, but I'm not sure that they have been trained on, when I was raised, those what I view as common sense trade skills, like righty-tighty or lefty-loosey. And if you don't know what that means, then you are the exact audience that I am speaking to. You see, this toolbox we give to the resident on move-in day, and it contains a couple of pliers, 2 6-inch crescent wrenches, one, if not two, 6-in-1 screwdrivers, a tape measure, a pocket level, and the one item it does not include is a hammer. Don't put one in there. As a matter of fact, a part of this entire process, we get touch-up paint from our painting company so that they can leave behind like a baby food jar of touch-up paint that exactly goes to the wall, and in there put a chip brush so that our resident could do those touch-ups. I mean, if we really wanted to go crazy, how about we just get rid of flat paint altogether inside of our apartments? Because by doing that and going to like an eggshell or possibly even semi-gloss, a satin finish, whichever version you have, we make the paint more durable. You see, it's things like that that get taken into account for this process. So we leave behind a resident toolbox, and instead of a hammer, use those strips that get put on the wall that when they're applied correctly, you can remove them with no damage. There's a couple of different kinds available, but they're the removable adhesive strips that come off the wall easily when applied properly. And if we need our resident to know how to apply them properly, well, then put a QR code to the video from the manufacturer on the interwebs on a sticker on the side of the toolbox. Yes, we put those things, the adhesive strips, in the toolbox. Tell our resident they can use them. I know. See, this is the first point that I can sense your eyes opening wide as you begin to think through this. And you say, wait a second, those things aren't exactly cheap. And I agree with you. They can be expensive. But what is the difference between spending money there and spending money for the wall repairs that happen from our residents who can't find the stud when trying to put a picture up on the wall? I mean, at the very least, if you want to still go with the old plan of putting a nail or a screw in the wall, give your residents a stud finder with a QR code to the video on how to use the stud finder. That way they can identify where they want to put or hang their heavy mirror or whatever that is that they want to go on the wall. But you see, this toolbox does two things. One, it gives our new residents the ability to put together their own bed frame, their furniture, the drawer, the desk set that they went to the local store and bought. We give them the tools that are necessary to do that. Well, we let them borrow them anyway. But the second thing that we're doing is we're creating an opportunity that requires us to return to the apartment a week or two later. Yeah, we set up an appointment to return to pick back up the toolbox that they borrowed. By the way, these tools are not overly expensive. They're functional, but we're not talking brand name here because chances are some of them are going to get lost, and that's okay because it's not my, as the maintenance technician, tools. We're letting our resident borrow them. And the thing is, the reason why I say borrow is a week or two later, when we return back to the apartment, if our resident is there, that's when we can have that training or teachable moment of, this is a GFCI switch. Yes, I recognize you have 2 bathrooms and the one over there is the only one that actually has the little button on the receptacle. If the power goes off on that bathroom and there is no button in there, just go to the button in the first bathroom, push the reset button, and now they both have power. That is a feature, not a flaw. We could show them how to unjam a garbage disposal or replace a breaker if we want to have our residents doing that. We could also talk with them about the emergency maintenance reporting features and remind them that they are calling a human. Maybe we even print out a piece of paper that says, here's the number you call, the resident portal, the whatever, here's our work order process. These are items that are considered an emergency. These are items that are not. Please give us a call as soon as possible. We pick up the toolbox at that moment and then we leave. And because our entire process is focused on being full, not fast, we can expect to have minimal work orders in that apartment for the first 60 to 90 days. And that's critical because remember, in our old version of the make-ready process, maintenance was finished with the make-ready process right here until that resident gets their notice to move out or decides to not renew.
Our sponsor today is AppWork. Best known for exceptional maintenance workflow management, AppWork offers so much more. Optimize operations with its advanced business intelligence that turns data into strategy. Simplify your operations with AppWork's intuitive platform. Service team members love the gamification of maintenance workflows and leaderboards, making everyday tasks a competition for number one. From project management to team communication, AppWork has you covered. Visit appworkco.com today.
Well, I'm not a big fan of that. Matter of fact, I think we need to integrate both preventive maintenance, work orders, and the make-ready process so much that we never stop thinking about this. Hence, the apartment life cycle. You see, what ends up happening is that resident's apartment number is put into our database, or we put it into whatever software we have. Heck, it would even be fairly easy to run this off of a spreadsheet with a formula in it that you input the apartment number and the date of move-in, and it generates months, 3 months from the move-in date, that maintenance is going to return during that month and inspect it. Now, maybe we don't call it an inspection per se. I like to refer to it as fix what you find. Because you see, what this means is, in this process, we're going back to 1/3 of our apartment community every single month. We set that expectation at move-in. In other words, if the resident is moving in January, they're there in January, that means February, March, the month of April, the 3rd month, we're returning. We do this on a schedule. The resident can even tell us if they want to be there or don't want to be there. But either way, we perform this visit. And on this visit, what it does is the actual make-ready maintenance inspection the same way, only now it's occupied. And we do the preventive maintenance tasks that we really should be doing every 3 months. 4 times a year is really the best way for us to replace an air conditioning filter. Check the smoke detectors if it's allowed. I mean, I know some states require it monthly, but still, in this instance, we're there every 3 months. And I don't care if you follow the rule of the right, where you go the right-hand wall, or the law of the left, where you go the left-hand wall of your apartment. You follow that wall all the way around until you get back to the front door. I don't care which way you go. For a little bit of spice, really, alternate it. The 3rd month, you go to the right. The 6th month, you go to the left. The 9th month, you go back to the right. And we perform a full inspection, and we fix everything we find. I mean, how many times have we gone into a moved out apartment, and you look up and there's a brown stain on the ceiling that you're fairly certain wasn't there when the resident moved in, but they never called you about it? Even worse, that brown stain is wet, and the resident never called. You can tell it's been there a while and it's got different color gradient rings on it, just like a tree, which means it has happened repeatedly. And our resident never even called. Well, of course they didn't call. It doesn't affect them. It doesn't bother them. Not only that, it would bother them if maintenance had to come. And then they have to remember to call us to tell us. And until our systems that we're developing AI for can get that whole ESPN thing figured out to tell us when a leak is happening without our resident having to call, we're always going to run into that. At the very least, during the apartment life cycle idea, every 3 months, we're getting into that apartment, performing a full inspection, and we're fixing it. And you know what? We're not going to charge our resident for the repairs. I don't care if they broke the blind. Fine, we replace the blind. We can double check the windows. We can double check all the door stops, the doorknobs, all of the things that happen over the regular life of the apartment. And not only that, we document it on a work order, on the work order, or as a part of the inspection. Heck, a lot of our systems now have the ability to track inspections from the maintenance technician's cell phone. Good. Awesome. Create an inspection for what's found at your property and run through this. You can even dictate and track which direction you went last time, so we change it so we see things differently this time. We've talked in the past, look at other episodes about performing inspections, for why I firmly believe we've got to change that up instead of doing the same thing. Because remember, if we only do the same thing, we can only expect the same results. That's why I gave you the challenge at the front. I didn't say this was going to be an easy concept to adopt. But if we don't do something different, we won't change the results to something different. So this apartment life cycle inspection series happens at month 3, 6, and 9. We fix everything that we find, and we say thank you to our resident for giving us an opportunity to enhance their home. We take away the terminology of preventive maintenance and we make it proactive. We fix things before our residents even have a chance to call in work orders. Yeah. Think about that for a minute. I'm staying in a hotel room. That's how they run hotels. Maintenance, the engineering department at hotels, they, every so often, month, quarter, bi-monthly, whatever their term time is, maintenance is getting in and out of every room multiple times per year, in addition to whatever their housekeeping department identifies as a repair that is needed. They're checking every faucet. They're looking underneath every sink. They're double checking the air conditioning equipment. They're replacing the filters as needed. This follows that same thought process for apartments. We begin to get proactive with repairs. And what this means is, during our residents' life cycle, the resident life cycle, they see the fact that we care about them so much that we want their tenancy, their residency, to be as problem-free as possible. Of course, that means we have to get in and repair it. I mean, think about it like your car. A friend of mine, another podcast host from us, one of my co-hosts on The Turnover, he yesterday had this concept that I hadn't really considered before. I mean, those of you who have a car, raise your hand if you actually take your car in when prescribed by mileage to replace the oil. Why do you do that? That's right, because it keeps the engine and all of the parts that require lubrication inside that harsh environment from failing at the worst possible time on the side of the road. We know this by spending a little bit of money up front. We save huge inconvenience and repairs later. Well, that's the same type of situation I'm talking about doing with a 3, 6, and 9-month life cycle inspection. But here's the thing. After that 9th month inspection, the 10th month is 2 months before move out. That means our resident has to put in their notice to vacate if they're going to decide not to renew, or they're going to tell us that they're going to renew. If they do renew, awesome. That's great. Month number 12 is just another inspection to repair whatever it is that they didn't, that needs to happen. And then we go back and the whole process starts over again. No, remember, if we think through this, every month we're only doing 1/3 because we're tracking it based on the move-in date. So that means, again, every single apartment on your community is inspected every quarter. If your community has 100 apartments, you're doing 33 apartment inspections per month. 34 on 1 month just to make it work out. But that means our filters are actually being replaced. And how many work orders next year, if we've actually inspected the apartments, are not going to even be happening because we're fixing them before our resident even has a chance to call it in? I'm believing that if we implement this next year, we will have a drastically lower amount of emergency call-outs because, one, the equipment's going to last longer because we're proactively fixing it, as well as our residents will see we care so much, we're human beings, that those items that they suddenly remember at 11 o'clock at night that they should have called about in the morning, if they break at all, they're kind of minor because we're humans, we're seeing them, we're smiling, we're doing all those soft skill things to help increase our renewals. But let's say our resident decides they don't want to renew. Okay, it happens. I understand. Life happens. Our residents are not eternal guests. If our resident decides to move, great. Thank you for staying. We appreciate you staying here. But because you're going to move out, let's have a pre-move out inspection so that we can provide our residents with what the move out is going to look like. In order for that to happen, both the office team and our maintenance team need to go perform the pre-move out inspection. Those of you who are doing a pre-move out inspection, if only maintenance goes, what does a resident want to talk about? They want to talk about fees. They want to talk about lease terms. They want to talk about their deposit. They want to talk about financial closeout, what it's going to look like, credit ratings, credit scores, all of the things that we actually tell our maintenance teams to not give an answer on. As a matter of fact, we tell our maintenance, you got to go to the office for that. Well, how about we become proactive as an industry? And if a resident is moving out, both the office and the maintenance go at the same time. Again, full experience, not fast. I mean, quick is what we want to do, but the reality is that we want to provide the information, thinking ahead by what our resident is going to want to know and providing that information. Okay, so we have both our office team and maintenance team. Maintenance commences on another inspection, but this time because this is month number 10 and month number 9, we just did one, chances are there aren't going to be many repairs. In this case, the inspection is focused on scheduling the make-ready maintenance. You see, when the apartment is vacant, we want to do those items. We only want to do those items that are best done when the apartment is vacant. Flushing the water heater, cleaning the refrigerator coils. Let's talk about that later. Cleaning the air conditioning coils if required. We want to get in and do only that work that's best done without furniture, like painting the entire apartment, flooring repairs, maybe countertop, cabinets, those things that are best done when the apartment is vacant. And we can do that by schedule. We could schedule it with our vendor 2 months ahead of time. We go into the apartment and we see that the bedroom was a little girl's room. And we know that because it is painted the most wonderful, lovely color of fluorescent neon Barbie pink. You know, the kind that takes 3 coats of primer and 2 coats of regular paint in order to return it to our normal color. Maintenance is performing the inspection around the apartment while our office team is discussing with the resident, can we reserve a parking space for you when you turn in your keys by end of business on January 1st? Do we need to reserve an elevator? This is how that's going to work. This is when your fob is no longer going to function. Do you have any questions about the paperwork, about closeout, about whatever it is, the type of documentation, what it means if you don't take your furniture with you when you move out, what that cost is going to look like? All of this information can be discussed with the resident by the office. And we're talking here about a 15, 20-minute visit. That's it. Then move out happens. And because we made the schedule with our vendor, heck, we'll go one step further. If you think this through, 2 months ago when we found that Barbie pink apartment, maybe we take a picture of it, send a picture with a rough square footage estimate for our painter. The painter takes a look at that, gives us a price on what it's going to take that Barbie pink apartment and put it back to our normal color. And then we actually get a purchase order before the resident has even left so that we can approve it out of our budget. I know. Yes, I'm being sarcastic here. During the apartment's vacancy, that becomes a very easily scheduled event because we've been fixing the things as they break during the year. The make-ready maintenance is actually very easy. We can get realistically with this whole plan, the whole thing, the apartment life cycle in place, I firmly believe we could do it with minimal stress and turn an apartment, have it ready for someone to move in 3 days. The whole thing. Notice that's the caveat, the whole thing. I am not saying that with the current process, we could have it ready in 3 days. I think that's a challenge. Can it be done? Yeah. I'm not sure that the juice is worth the squeeze per se on that short of time. Using an apartment life cycle mentality or thought process, I think it can be done. I would love to hear your thoughts on going through intentionally visiting our residents' apartments before they call us. I really like these benefits. Do me a favor, whatever platform you're on, write it in the notes. Even better, reach out to me at Multifamily Media Network's website. You can record a message. Let me know what it is. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm really curious about this concept because it's a game changer. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be easy. It's going to require a complete cultural change. It's going to require some technology changes. It's going to affect staffing. It's going to affect decision making. I'm not saying this is easy, but what I am saying is if we keep doing the same thing, we can expect the same stress, the same results, the same challenges. So I guess ultimately it boils down to is if you're curious, do we want these same challenges this time next year? Or what would new challenges look like? Because we're never going to get rid of them. I mean, I continue to say that entropy is job security. Stuff will break. What I am saying, though, I'm trying to change the thought process a little bit of if stuff is going to break, why don't we attempt to fix it before it does or diminish the requirements of our residents who are not trained maintenance professionals to be the ones that we rely on to tell us what we need to fix after it's already broken. Let's think through changing that. And that's the end of the challenge. Although if you raised eyebrows, you crossed your arms, if you got worried about it, I would like to hear from you. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week. I'll see you somewhere.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Maintenance Mindset. I hope you take away ideas that apply to your current and future career goals. Please check out Maintenance Mindset Minute to hear short-form, high-impact, applicable, maintenance-centered information. Whatever you do today, do it with a maintenance mindset. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, comment, and subscribe. Visit multifamilymedianetwork.com to learn more about our other industry podcasts, thought pieces, and sponsorship opportunities. I'll see you somewhere.